Greetings, Guzzlers. I drank a glass of wine, and unfortunately I can't have any more yet because I'm not sure if there's enough in here for what I need. I'll have to remedy that because we're going to need quite a lot of red wine for the sauce we're making. Well, we're not just making a sauce obviously, but we're making a sauce to go with our fish. I'm doing a Rick Stein again, and this is from one of his early recipes in his seafood restaurant. This is cod with puy lentils. I'll come back to that in a minute. Puy lentils and a red wine sauce. Now we're cheating a bit with the lentils because I seem to have a job buying lentils in Tesco's. So we're going to use these packet ones. Okay. So if you were following his recipe, it does tell you how to cook the lentils, but I'm using these. Okay. You want some thick fillets of cod or some other firm fish like that. There you go. That's Tesco's version of thick fillets. We've had this argument before, haven't we? And you want the skin on. Okay. We're going to grill that. You're going to want 50 grams of onion, 50 grams of celery, 50 grams of carrot. You want some sea salt, some fresh ground black pepper, some mild curry powder, ground allspice, ground nutmeg, cloves, salt and pepper, I think I already told you, some sugar, some butter. We want 75 grams of butter, split, 50-25. You want a tablespoon of flour. You want 600 ml of chicken stock and 600 ml of red wine. Okay, so let's get making Rick Stein's grilled cod with puy lentils and red wine sauce. If you're following his recipe, you would need to cook your lentils at this point. Okay, but we don't need to because these are sort of like pre-cooked. Okay, you also gonna want to start your sauce, but before we actually make the sauce, we want to take 50 grams of that butter. You retain 25 for the end bit of the sauce. Move that over there. Now I'm doing this in my sort of flattish pan, my saute pan or whatever, simply because we've got a lot of reduction to do. Larger surface area, silence it on. Okay, but before we start making our sauce, we just want to melt the butter down because we want to butter our cod. So I've got a baking tray. You might have seen part of it. I've just moved it while I did this. I've got a bit of baking paper on it. I was going to use foil because it's going under the grill. Can't find any foil. I'm sure I've got some in there somewhere. Okay, but we're gonna, before we start doing this, we're just going to butter our cod. Okay, so I've got my pastry brush and I've got my cod, which typically, oops, it's gone everywhere on the floor. All that water in there. Look at that. I bet they weigh it once they've got the, you know, and they put that bloody water in it. Get that out of the way. Not much went off like that. So like I say, we want skin on, and we will be grilling it skin side up. Okay. All I'm doing at the moment is just draining that off and putting that on there. Okay. Just washing my hands at the minute. Now, and I'm also going to just get up that little bit of water that went on the floor. Or I say, the bloody floor's just been cleaned today. Making the bloody thing dirty. So, the carrot and the onion, which I need to peel, we're going to chop up finely, and we're going to fry that in that butter. But the first thing we want to do is just take that butter and just give that fish a bit of a buttering. Okay, now we're going to do both sides, but for the moment, the reason I'm doing just the one, that's going to go in there and fall in it. You're going to make a mess. It's because what we want to do is just season that side, okay, with a bit of fresh ground pepper and some sea salt. Now, remember I said you want nice thick chunks. He says sort of like 175 grams per person. Okay, but this plainly isn't that big, is it? So I'm now just going to turn that over, and I'm now just going to butter and season the other side. But at this point, we're then just going to put it aside. Actually, I'll put it in the oven, but the oven's not on yet. Okay, so I'm going to butter and season that, and then we can start using the rest of that butter to make the sauce. Just going to put that heat back on that. I just turned it off because I think it went out anyway. I'm just going to put that on low, and I've started chopping that celery and carrot finely, as it were. All these lumps are going to be strained out. Okay. Oh, I said to you about pooey lentils. So I was telling them at work today that what I was cooking, and I said it was cod with, is it pew, or I said I don't know. They all laughed at me and said it's pooey lentils. And I said, it don't look like that, does it? So they said, it's pooey, not poo, what do I call them? Pew. I said, it looks like pew, doesn't it? So I looked it up in front of them, and it is pooey. Okay. So it's not a hugely substantial dish, and some people who have made this have commented that, oh, I've done it with a bit of veg or whatever. And certainly with them thin fillets, well, oh, they're in the oven, aren't they? There isn't a lot there. But what we're now going to do anyway is I'm just going to chuck all that in there, and we're going to fry that for a minute or two in that butter. I'll turn the heat up now, I've got the stuff in there. Okay, we're just going to fry that for a minute or two before we add the rest of the sauce ingredients. Okay, some of those are starting to get a little bit translucent, so at this point I'm going to take some ground allspice. We want a small pinch of that. I'm doing about 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, we want same again of ground nutmeg. Okay, now he says use ground, about the same again of ground cloves. I haven't got any ground cloves, I've only got ordinary cloves, so I'm just going to chuck some of them in. I don't see the point of grinding it, to be honest, given that all the lumps are going to be sieved out anyway. And then we want a generous pinch of curry powder. Okay, in that goes. And then I've got some salt, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Don't go anywhere. And then some sugar. I've got a teaspoon of sugar. In that goes. Let's get rid of that. And then we're going to add 600 mils of chicken stock, followed by, this is where I hope there's some spare, 600 mils. If not, I'll have to open more. I can always open more. There's a shabbily chili in the fridge. Well, actually, oh look, there's a little bit left. Actually, the wife's already started on the shabbily. In that goes. Okay. And now, wait, it's a little fine. I'll turn that heat up. And this is where we've now got to reduce that down. It's going to take ages. That's why I said I'm using a large surface area. to help evaporate that quicker. Okay, just need a little bit of a tidy up here. Oh look, I need to tidy up that bottle. Look around. Look, they're all in there, isn't there? So, the fish should only take about 5 to 10 minutes maximum, especially how thin that is. The lentils need just warming through the way we're doing it. So essentially, you don't do any more now until we do that. Now, remember I said you want 75 grams of butter. There's 25 grams of butter left there. And I've got some plain flour there, a tablespoon of that. Okay, that's going to go and help thicken the sauce up later. Oh. Let's get reducing. That's reduced down quite considerably, although that has been going for about half an hour or so. So we want to get all the lumps out. So what we want to do with this is now carefully sieve it into a fresh pan, which we're then going to oops, oh look at that mess I made down there. So what we want to do is, when I clean that mess up, is we're going to then thicken that. But before we do that, we're just going to keep it warm while we just warm up the lentils, and we'll start thinking about doing the cod. Or just about to say chicken then. What chicken? It's cod. So I've put my grill onto high. I for you to say broiler, it's a grill. Okay, I've got my cod out ready to go under it once that's up to temperature. My sauce is strained, and I'm just going to put that to one side for the moment, because we'll thicken that once we're almost ready. So in my case, because my lentils are pre-cooked, I could put them in the microwave, but I've put them on the hob with a bit of water in there, and we're just going to basically warm them through. It's just a gentle heat, there's not a lot of water in there. So we're just going to warm them through, and then once they're warm through, I'm going to put that to one side, and we'll sort that out. And when the grill's up, we're going to grill that about 5 minutes or so. So we're going to grill it skin side up, and obviously we want it to cook through. Right, I've just swapped the lentils and the sauce over. Okay, I might have to turn that heat off on them lentils, because that's the big burner at the back. The rest of the little pan. Okay, remember these have been sort of pre-cooked. We're just sort of cooking them through. So I'm just going to turn that off for a moment. Now I've got the heat up on this one. I want to bring this back to the boil, but at this point the fish is going to go under that grill. Let's try them quite fit properly. That's an awkward bugger, and I have to leave the door slightly open because I'm grilling. I am not the B wording. I'm grilling. So in a minute we're going to be adding the remaining butter, about 25 grams worth, and that tablespoon of flour, with the idea of thickening that sauce up. I've just got to bring that back to the boil. Okay, but like I say, that's essentially it. I'm not sure whether this was a main, if you went to Rick's and you had it as a main. He's talking about 25, well no, not even that, about 15 grams of the pui lentils per plate, one piece of cod of 175 grams, which obviously they're smaller than that, and then some of that sauce. So you might find you want a little bit more than that. So we've got 2 bits of cod each, even though between them probably only just about 200 grams. By the way, did I mention I accidentally found some more red wine? Oops, shouldn't say that aloud. I told the wife that was the first bottle I started. Actually, she's already spotted there's one in there already in the bin. But I did say, all of that first bottle went in the sauce, darling. That's just a drinking pot. Right, I'm just waiting on that to come to the boil. Ooh, did I put my timer on? No, I didn't put my timer on. I mean, fish. I'm giving it 5 minutes. Now, if you use the big, thick, chunky ones, he's suggesting about 8 minutes. But you want the fish cooked through, but you want the skin nice and crisp. What we do with that flour is we add that flour to that butter. So I've just turned the heat off on that, it's simmering in a minute. And we just want to blend, probably this spoon's a little bit big for this. We want to blend this butter. So it's a bit like, what do you call it, if we were making a roux, but we actually, rather than blending it in the pan, we just blend the butter and the flour. So it needs, obviously, you want that you want that butter softened. It's making, as he calls it, I mean, I would say it's a roux, but technically it's a roux when you're using it in there in a sauce. At this point, we're mixing the butter and whatever, and it's a marnie or money. And now we've actually got that like that. What we do, that's splashing it in. We spoon that into there. Just getting that off of that, and this is where you now want to whisk, and we just want to whisk that in while that's simmering, and that should start to thicken our sauce. Hopefully, if we reduced it enough in the first place. I suppose I should have tasted it. So, obviously I want to make sure it don't go lumpy, which you shouldn't do. So we're just going to cook that through a little bit. So now at this point, we're going to clean up the mess we just made. We're just waiting on our cod, and then we'll be ready to serve it up. I'm going to put my lentils over here on this smaller burner, just so I can just warm them again. Okay, it's on a nice low heat, because obviously we want everything nice and warm. So, as soon as that cod's finished, we'll be ready to play. So, final thing to do is, now we've got a bloody fly in here, is I've put my lentils on, I've put my cod on there, and we now just want to spoon some of this red wine sauce. I'm just going to keep it at this point over the lentils. Okay, whoops, went on the fish, who cares? It's all going down the same way, isn't it? Remember, this is making enough for 4, but let's have a little taster. So, here we go. Ooh, that plate's on. Ooh. So some lentils, a little bit of cod, and some of that sauce. Cod nice and delicate. It is overpowered, as you might expect, by the red wine sauce. You do get a little bit of the lentils from it, but it is primarily that sauce. But very tasty. That is Rick Stein's cod with pooey lentils and a red wine sauce. I'm going to go and eat that now. Oh, run out of wine.